Hey, what's up? How you doing there, Aaron?
I am chilling. It's been real busy around here. Things are starting to slow down now that both Star Trek and Foundation are rotating off the air. But I just got back from a vacation, so I'm kind of still catching up. But I'm really happy to be here talking Foundation with you, Pete, because I am starved for. I know we're going to keep stuff spoiler free at the beginning, but the thing I'm
Yes.
really excited about is to start talking about the R. Danielle all of the situation. Uh,
Yeah. So we are going to, yeah, we'll say that up front. We are going to do a book spoilers discussion together. That's going to be released on the Bald Move podcast. We're going. So in this conversation, we're going to. If you have anything that you want to talk about that's book spoiler that doesn't give away future plot points, then we'll entertain it. But this is mostly going to be just show, and we're also going to get into the cut scenes that David Goyer released, and then I guess Skydance said, "Hey, you can't do that," and took them back down. So if you consider that spoilers, we'll give you a little warning before we jump into those. But that's going to be part of what we're talking
Wait,
about. Obviously,
were those the images that got shared with me last week? Are these the same ones we're talking about?
no, I
Oh,
shared some
okay.
BTS images I saw that were completely
All right.
not
It's
released
like
to the
I was
public.
just thought it was hilarious because the way you sound is like it was like a leak, and I'm like, can David Goyer leak something about? But never mind, never mind.
No, he put out some cut scenes from the season that they didn't make. He
Mm.
mentioned it to you in the interview,
Right.
and then he put it out. But then they took them down. Like they were up just for a little bit of time, and then they were taken off the internet promptly
He also
afterward.
didn't. I just checked as of yesterday. I haven't checked today. He hasn't updated his because he was waiting on 2 or 3 projects to come through too. And I was curious about what's next after Foundation. Anyway, Foundation.
Yes. So we are here to talk about Foundation season 3. We're going to talk about the finale. We're going to talk about the future. As I mentioned, we're going to discuss the interview that Aaron had with David Goyer, the former showrunner. We're going to go through those points of what he said and how that adds to our understanding of what happened. And we're going to basically just wrap this season up. That's the plan. And then later we're going to go and we're going to talk and do a different recording of us talking about book spoilers. So for those of you who've been requesting that'll be out in some form over the next week.
You just
So
want to do it.
first of all,
You don't want to do it at the end of this video. I thought we were going to just do it at the end of this one, so you'd have it.
yes, we
That.
are going to do that, but
Oh.
my viewers are not going to see it.
Oh, they're not. Okay, we're going to do it, but we're not going to do it in front of YouTube. I thought we were going to do it in front of God and everybody.
Well, if we do that, then people might wander in. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I forgot. Okay, it's that. Okay, it's yeah. They're going to
That's
walk
the
in
part I'm
inside.
worried about with that.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. That
But I
makes sense.
will release it so that but I will release it as a video too, so that people who want to be spoiled and enjoy spoilers will be able to have access to it.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So first of all, I guess you need to introduce yourself, and after you do that, just give me your general thoughts on this season now that it's come to an end.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron. I am from the Bald Move Network. Me and my buddy Jim have been doing television and movie coverage, just general pop culture discussion for about 15 years, broadcasting out of the Queen City, Cincinnati, Ohio. We just got wrapped up our Foundation coverage, our Stranger World coverage. We're in the middle of our Alien Earth coverage. Our big shows are House of the Dragon, Severance, Silo, Fallout. We're going to be doing this winter. Lots of stuff. We have a lot of fun. Baldmove.com. Check it out. My opinion of this is unfortunately and ironically in a Greek tragic kind of way the ultimate unveiling of the grand Goyer plan that I feel like the Double D's always said, the Dan and Dave over at Game of Thrones always said that the reason they wanted to make Game of Thrones was the Red Wedding. And I feel like the mule, this part of this is the red wedding of the Foundation series. It's when it stops screwing around, becoming like a serialized science fiction, navel gazing, ooh, kind of, to being like a concrete narrative. And he got there, and then it was yoinked from him right in the middle of production. And that was a big part of the interview. But I thought this, usually there's one or two parts of a series season each that I've been critical about. This is the first season that I don't think I had a serious criticism. I mean, you can, if you're a book reader, you can quibble about how you feel about how he swerved the mule reveal, but I felt like that it's not finished either, because this storyline isn't finished, and I think there's a couple more ways they can curve it yet to satisfy us book fans a little bit more. So, and that's the tricky part about talking about the end of this without spoiling it, because I can't just go and say, well, in the book it happens this way, and this way, because I'm pretty sure that at least 50% of that's going to wind up in some form next season. But I loved it. I thought it looked great. I thought, like, it was really good to see. I think Terrence Mann kind of put his stamp on Brother Dusk. He's always kind of been second fiddle to the other emperors, the other thrones, in terms of storyline. And Lee Pace as Brother Dude. I mean, what can you say? Demerzel, Laura Byrne, what can you say? She has been defining what it looks like to freak out as a robot for 5 years now, and she did a masterclass of that. I love what they're doing with maybe setting up a dark reflection of Harry in the vault, who's getting kind of jealous and pissed about being the left hand. I feel like, and it's just a damn shame, because if this show, whether this show succeeds or falters, it's going to be one of the great what ifs of all time. It's going to be up there with what if George had finished the books before Dan and Dave had to make fan fiction for the last 2 seasons. It's going to be, what if they didn't cancel Star Trek after 3 seasons? What if they didn't cancel Firefly after 1? It's going to be one of those, because if this show does crater, and it craters because the show looks like crap, or it's not able to get the talent that it used to be able to, or the writers just weren't able to, it's going to be hard to see that. It's going to be hard to say anything else than Apple and Sundance strip this thing, like in the Mafia, like in Goodfellas. Once they sucked all the value out of the restaurant, the next thing you do is you burn it down and get the insurance check for it, declare it a loss on your taxes. And I'm like, that will suck, because this is shaping up to be one of the greatest science fiction series of all time. That's my opinion. How about you, Pete?
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think that now that we get to the part where we started to see the payoffs to a lot of the stuff that they planted in the early seasons, it's gotten to be a lot more satisfying. All the things it was doing good, it just continued to do well. I do think, like, looking back at it a few days after the fact, the end is a little bit mashed together in a way. And I say this after looking at those cut scenes and knowing what could have been, I guess, as far as what they had planned and what actually did it, because that was one of the big surprises I had whenever I was getting ready to watch it, was the runtime. Like, the runtime in previous finales was extra size, you know what I mean? Right. Like they made them longer, and this was like just the standard length of the other episodes of the season. So there was it felt like that the shakeup and the things that happened, there were you could see a little bit of that in the way that the last 2 episodes especially came together. But at the same time, I think it's the best season so far, as far as how everything turned out. And I would really enjoyed the Brother Darkness stuff. And I mean, I didn't enjoy seeing Demerzel die. I'm not sure how I feel about that but I mean, I'm intrigued to see what they have planned, what's going to come after that. I'm not like, oh my God, they ruined the series. They killed my favorite character kind of feeling. So yeah, I think, the one thing that I think when I watched it initially, I was just trying to keep everything short. As when I look at it now, I do think that the ending doesn't, that's the one place where I think you can see a little bit of the, the discord that happened behind the scenes and everything else that was going on. It kind of changed what the final product was.
You thought, because like you could definitely see the fingerprints of where they cut corners, the cut scenes or the cut scenes short, because they made that. And one of the things came out in an interview is that they use this ADR technique, this dialogue recording after the fact, where so when they have someone's head turned and they said, let's walk out here into the space yacht yard to continue this discussion, and the director's like, well, that's going to cost $1 million, fuck that. They show the guy's head and it's like, we'll continue this discussion at another time, and it's just paraphrase it in another scene. And there's a bunch of that I saw in the beginning and the middle of the show. At the end, I felt like after talking to Goyer, that he shot the bulk of that 10th episode, and it was and that's one of the reasons
I can give you two examples that I think. For me, the dude's escape from mycogen, that felt completely like they just skipped over some steps, you know what I mean? Like he's in the digestion pit, he gets out, and then he dispatches the Sunmaster, and then he's just stumbling home at the end of the episode. Like that felt like there was more that they truncated to for budget reasons specifically, you know what I mean? And I think the beta reveal is a little bit like that too. Like I said, I'd say that after knowing how much more was on the page from seeing the cutscenes, but like the idea, like one of the big things about this is that like I said, I talked to you a little bit about this beforehand, and it was, we watched this by ourselves. We have advanced copies, so you don't really talk to Jim about it too much because you're going to talk to him on the podcast, so that kind of defeats the purpose. And so a lot of times we'll talk to each other because we're the only other person that we know that has already seen it or whatever. And with this one, we both had stuff going on. So we were, I had to rush and get it done a day early because I was going out of town and everything else. And so like, I had it for a couple of days, like what I thought happened. And then whenever the episode came out, there was like a lot of dissonance because people had, reacted a lot differently than what my thinking was about it. Yeah. And I think the beta thing is the best example, because like there was like a legitimate question for some people if whether beta died or not at the end. You know what I mean? Like to me, that was never implicated, like that was, but because of the way the scene plays out, I think it was just not really as well put together as it could have been.
Yeah, it was. I guess that's to say I didn't see it as ambiguous, because to me the mule hadn't been defeated yet, and at best she was like, this was kind of like the equivalent of Luke jumping off the weather vane on Bespin. Like you got your ass handed to you, but you're able to pull out a strategic retreat at the last minute, and you're going to regroup and come back and the return of the Mentalic or whatever. I guess I could see it like, they didn't show, they just showed this white blinding light flash. Maybe people think everyone in the room but Gaal got their minds pureed or something or whatever. But I was like, well, they clearly show that if they wanted to. But again, it wasn't me knowing kind of in broad strokes where I think they're going with it because of my book knowledge, is kind of kept me from even considering some stuff like that. That's what I use Jim for.
Mhm.
Like Jim is my test viewer, and if he doesn't pick up on something, and I don't think he seriously considered the beta being dead either, but
it kind of made it seem like it just wasn't the most well defined season finale sequence. You know what I mean?
There's a way to tell this. Yeah, I don't think that they intended to be that ambiguous. There probably was yet another action scene that they wanted to get Gaal from A to B there. Maybe one last snarl from Beta or something. I don't know. Is this where the yeah, I don't know when you want to discuss the images, the cut scenes and stuff, because I can see that where like the dark Beta character came into
yeah.
being.
Let's we could just go into beta now, and then we can transition into those cutscenes. I guess so. If we're gonna talk about that, first of all, you're without any spoilers or anything else like that, would just as a general fan of television and this TV show in particular, how do you think did this work? Did Beta as the mule work for you?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's one of those things that I was obviously not looking in that direction. So when people were like, Beta, she's got a, I was kind of like, oh, you guys are really misinterpreting things. But like the more I thought about it, the more it made sense, and the more I saw people talking about the particulars of like they're really careful to show the mule in close proximity to Beta, and the only time when they're separated by a good distance, he has these kind of lucid thoughts of like, I feel like someone is pulling my strings or whatever. And that all makes a lot of sense if you consider that her powers don't work from a terrific distance, and that the mule is kind of coasting on emotional momentum when he's like disabling the gates, whatever. Also, that is a facility he took over without using his powers at all. It seems like he just took that over with sheer military might. The fact that Beta in the beginning is talking about how she hates the politics. She doesn't understand why people can't be all in one thing. The fact that she describes her, she's essentially an influencer. She came from nothing, scrabbled up, which I was definitely on to her being the mule's little sister or something. But I feel like it works. Now, I watched your video, and you are right that it precludes certain things that they do with that character going forward, and ultimately, I guess what the whole mule thing hinges on. But I guess I'm here to ask: does it really? Is there no other way we can shuffle these characters and get to kind of that same point? And that's what I want to talk about, definitely in the spoiler section. But
yeah. We'll see how that goes. Like my initial reaction watching it was that, okay, is that the real reveal? I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I've been thinking about it as going a certain way, since I first read that book, which is a long time ago. So I wasn't 100% on board, but then when I read, the interviews with him and with, the actor as well, the way she approached it, like I feel like if there is another reveal, then she doesn't know about it. You know what I mean? Like she's not in on that.
And that wouldn't surprise
when
me.
she took the job, they told her she was the mule, and she acted accordingly. You know what I mean? So
I always take what the writers say, what the actors say, what even the showrunner says with a little pinch of salt, because ultimately, when Goyer's talking to us, when he's talking to Slash Film, whatever, it's an extension of his role as a professional paid liar that makes shit up for entertainment. And if he can if he could spin a yarn on an interview or something that would he'd calculate increase our delight of future seasons, he absolutely would do it. But I kind of think that the Beta is the mule, that they're not going to like, but actually there was a that I hope not. That would be bad. That would be terrible.
and I think like if one of the questions I have is there is a lot of stuff that from 310 related to her that they cut out, which we'll talk about this stuff now. And my initial, like a lot of the questions people had of the finale are answered in those cut scenes. You know what I mean? Like Beta is definitely not dead. You know what I mean? There she has a whole interaction with Harry afterwards that, that doesn't get filmed at all. And, that was another big question coming out of there. Will Harry turn to the dark side basically for the next chapter because of what happened with him and Gaal? So there's a lot of the things that weren't clear. And there's like, Torrin, there's more info on Torrin. There's more info on how she controlled the pirate. There's a lot of stuff that's pretty relevant to the story that they just completely cut. So, my question was, why cut so much? And the only thing I can come up with is that they wanted it to remain a mystery of like, is she really the mule or not? You know what I mean? Like they wanted to preserve that until next season which makes me think even more that she is in fact the mule, that it's more of a fake out than, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of my analysis of it too. That, it doesn't suit anyone's purposes to clarify,
someone's asking in the comments if they can see the cut pages. Like I said, they were removed, but I have a link to them saved on Imgur. So I can share. So I can share that here.
Plausible deniability. Were we ever here?
Yeah, I didn't upload
just sharing information. It wants to be free.
These were shared with me, I didn't share them with the world. Yeah, so those are the scenes that we're talking about. So what was cut from what David Gorey said, what was cut from season 3, there was more, obviously. In your interview, he mentions a scene that wasn't in this at all. That was the scene on the slow ship to Terminus, where he said Demerzel would be out in space without a suit and her hair floating in the 0G or whatever. So yeah, there was a scene in 301 that involved Harry and Rach. Rach would have came back for that. And it's when Demerzel first goes to see him on Trantor when he's working on psychohistory. And this would have been paid off whenever she mentions in 306 that to Gaal that she gave him access to her memories to create psychohistory. Like this was the scene that set that up. And basically that was just for what she said. She says this instead of us actually seeing it, like he convinced her that it would be okay in the short term to help psychohistory because that would help preserve the empire. And there was also an extended bit with Dawn and Zagreus where he says that it would, they explain what's going on in the galaxy instead of having Gaal mention it in the voiceover, which probably would have been a welcome addition. But that shot was him standing there with the sun behind him. Like, I don't know what goes into that, but that whole jump gate sequence at the beginning of 301 was pretty impressive on a VFX thing. You know what I mean? Like it was definitely, that was a project. So
no, and that's the other thing that came out of the Goyer interview is the reason they whole fell out is Apple wanted to cut out another like $15 million that reflected the losses that they had incurred during the strike.
That's wild. I mean, that was
like a gunshot wound. They want Goyer to plug the hole with money.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I mean, I guess not really, but like just to hear the number 11 million to keep the sets up during the during the strike is something, because I don't know, like sometimes when you think about Apple, you're like, come on, man, 11 million. You got that.
Right. That's pocket change.
Yeah, you got that in the couch cushions, but it is $11 million US dollars. You know what I mean? Like it's not
$1 million there. Pretty soon you're talking real money, Pete.
Yeah. And also in 301, there was an alternate dusk opening where we saw him get his enhanced nanites. They were injecting him into his face, sort of like Botox is what it sounds like to me when I read the script.
Because they're not even physically looking like Cleon anymore. They need a little help to
Yeah, I think that's the implication, to make him look like his predecessors, but it also plants the seeds for him to manipulate what they're doing to him for his own means at the end, you know what I mean? Because he's got enhanced nanites because the problem is getting worse. So who knows? He might have some additional features next season whenever he takes over. They hint at the Navacula in that, and then you see him go to his tailor where he blows up on her, saying he doesn't care if the robe fits or doesn't fit. They've been doing this for centuries. They're all the same size, the whole thing. And that basically works as a way to bookend what happens at the end of, whenever he's a lot more graceful in his fitting and then eventually ducks out and destroys the clone takes. One of the things he told you was that most of those Empire scenes that are in the finale and season or episode 9 was all completed in their first shoot before he left production.
Yes.
All right. So the bigger things and the things that he mentions that he wished they would have kept in are both related to Beta, and they're both from 310.
Also, can I say that like the other thing about this is there was 2 rounds of cuts Apple requested. One was, I think, between writing and production, and the other was between post shutdown and resumption of production. And Goyer did accommodate them on those that first round of cuts, and I think that's where the end probably, that they were that was suffered a little bit, because obviously they're going to spend. I think some of these scenes that we're seeing here that were cut out of script, I think those are a direct result of, him trying to appease the budget masters, as you said. So,
yeah, and I think that's pretty standard procedure. I'm sure every season had these kinds of scenes, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's what Goyer said. He's like, that's what I guess Apple didn't understand, is like, we would need you to cut $11 million. And he's like, the ships left the harbor. It would be hard to cut $11 million, pre-season, but now it's going to be, and they're like, and eventually he got acrimonious, and he decided, fuck this. I love my family. I'll go spend time with them. And the story is that Apple wasn't able to get maybe even more than another $1 million cut. So I think most of the large kind of like is that might have been Goyer chainsawing the stuff as much as he could.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you didn't know these scenes existed, you can see how those points still got across in different ways. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think that is mostly stuff that happens in every season of every television show. Like you have the ideal that you lay out there that you want to get made, and then you have the reality of what you can afford to make or whatever.
If they fully shot this like Demerzel Harry prequel kind of thing, I think it would go almost too far to like it'd be into spoon feeding territory towards the end of that scene, because there's like essentially fully lay out the logic bomb, the paradox that she's put there, and I like that people have to figure it out a bit themselves.
Yeah. Corrine Williams in the comments asked if it's confirmed that season 4 will not have a significant time jump, and I can't point you to an exact source, but I seem to remember at the end of the last season, or sometime in between, David Goyer saying that season 3 and 4 would be the first time they didn't have a significant time jump.
Yeah. And that's certainly what he said to me, but also he's the first one to say they could very
completely change it.
change it and go.
They could just go straight to the moon and not have any of the actual. I mean, that you want to save budget, get rid of the entire cast and just have it happen on the moon with a medieval society scratching out an existence.
To me, since you've already greenlit,
or on Earth, I guess, not on the moon.
Yeah, to me, I think their fastest way out is through. Is like if they just want to end this in any kind of satisfying way that they can relicense out to other outlets in the future, just go with the Goyer plan, but stop at season 4, wrap it up. You did good. You had the guy come in with a shaky landing, because if they just start trying to elaborate on the stuff he's got for 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But back to these beta, yeah, we'll definitely get into that. But back to get these beta scenes, right? So in 310, you see her come in, and unlike the finale, she addresses Magnifico directly, you know, as she's revealing her, or maybe right after she reveals herself as the mule. And she apologizes to Maggie for leaving him with the pirate for so long. You know what I mean? And he says, hey, you know what? I don't care, as long as it was, you know, it helped you. It's okay. Like, so he sounds like he's completely devoted to her and has been, and, you know, understands what the sacrifice that she asked him to make means. Later in the script, she says, she discovered him, you know, he was the pirate's pet. So I don't know exactly how their timeline plays out, but it's not the first time they met whenever she approaches him at the bar in Calgon.
Right.
She also explains in more detail how she controls the pirate. This is something that she mentions in this, and then she goes back to it whenever she's talking to Harry later. He had some free will, in the sense, you know, in the sense of like what all the people she converts talk about, you know what I mean? Like, he was doing some of the stuff, but for the big stuff, she had to take over completely, for, you know. And the pirate, he didn't even really know if he didn't know that, like, the story wasn't his. He didn't know that he didn't have powers. Like, he had no mentalic powers whatsoever. And he didn't know that.
Yeah. He was in way too deep because of her.
Yeah. He just thought that everything he was doing was him, and believed that he was the mule. And that kind of tracks with what you would expect, I guess. I thought one of the interesting things from this is that Soren doesn't believe her initially, so she has to prove it to him, basically, because he would think what you would absolutely think, especially if you're in love with this person and have been married to them for a period of time, right? He says, you know, you're under the mule's control. It's okay, baby. You know, let's get you sorted out, and then we can go back to how things were before. And she's like, no, not at all. You know, like, I'm really the mule. So, you know, she mentions basically they went to Calgon not just for the honeymoon, but because she needed to be there to make all that happen and to take over the planet. Yeah. He couldn't, like, she basically says the pirate couldn't have handled the, taking over the army without her being there. They changed up a bunch of the flashbacks so that to recontextualize them, you know, from the earlier scenes. And let's see, you know, the one other thing I thought was pretty significant was that Gaal tries to shoot her. You know, a lot of the question was like, did she die after the sonic boom? Or the psychic boom. The psychic boom was a thing that Gaal did with, she uses in the script, she like touches her, the place where her face scars are, and hits her. And then that imprints as a scar on Beta going forward after. But, she gets the gun. She gets a gun and she tries to shoot Beta once the music starts, when the off-key music starts. But Torin instinctively protects her.
Mm-hmm.
He pushes Gaal and the shot misses. So he's already kind of responsible for her still being around. Like he's complicit now in the mule going forward. And then, like I said, she goes to talk to Harry in the vault. There's more of the, before they do that, she asks Pritch, she's like, so where's Gaal going? He's like, oh, she's going to Ignis, the planet that the Second Foundation lives on with all the Mentalics like you. Like he straight up is converted and gave up the game. So, of course they're not there anymore, but Pritch is fully cooked. When he, before he offers her to come in, he offers to have her come in the vault. And she says, why would I do that? You almost killed the pirate. And that's where they sort of talk about how, was it her that was there? Was it him? Was it her story? Was it his story? She says, he didn't know it wasn't his story, but it was hers. And the reason why Vault Harry knew that he was lying, or it didn't add up, was that he says that he looked into it, and Rossum's single child policy only applied to girls. So you could have a family with multiple children if they were all, males who could contribute to the farming or whatever he doesn't explain what that is, but I guess
it was it's a population control.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, right. You want men to work. Okay. Yeah.
You want more able-bodied men to work the fields or something, I guess is the implication.
Yeah.
And you're not wanting to have lots of babies, so you don't want to have lots of extra girls hanging around. So none of it really makes sense. Like the one-child policies don't really make sense when you play them through it all, but you know what I mean? That was the Foundation's justification for what was happening. He knew that the pirate wasn't the mule because he wouldn't have been affected by the one-child policy, which is the big reveal, and which would have explained a little bit and kind of makes it less likely that the vision is really like Magnifico's or someone's, you know what I mean? That they'll show us again that actually the Beta is also a puppet or something like that.
Yeah.
So basically
that'd be putting a hat on a hat. You don't do that.
Yeah. So basically, she tries to get Harry on board with her plan.
Mm-hmm.
They go back and forth about whether or not what she's doing is ethical. He doesn't think so. She does, obviously. She says, yeah, I'm going to make people love me, but they're going to love each other, too. So it'll be okay. Basically, the ends justify the means. Mm-hmm. And, he makes a comment about that she might give them a chance to withstand what's coming. Like if she does get people to come together, there's something bigger on the horizon that they're going to need to be together for. She wants to know where the Second Foundation is. He doesn't know. And, he doesn't really believe in what she wants to do, but she makes him see that, yeah, well, if you just die instead, then you can't really do anything. So, basically it comes down to a choice between unethical survival or ethical death. And Harry says there are no ethics after death, I suppose. So the season was going to end with him teaming up with her for the most part.
I'm glad, honestly, that's what I'm saying. Like some of these subtractions, I think, are additions because I think it's cool to let the audience twist a bit about Harry and wonder. Whereas like, you just have him meeting up with the big bad and being like, we're joining forces next season. Then that takes that speculation off the table. And it pushed us reading this script. That I don't think that we should take this as like, well, there's no way they won't do that, or there's no way they won't go.
Oh no, it's definitely speculative. I mean, hopefully,
just completely do whatever they want at this point.
Hopefully, when we talk about the interview you did, that'll be clear that all bets could be off as far as I mean, because like I said, they may have had them take it down because they don't want to give that information up. They want to preserve the mystery, or they might have him take it down because they don't plan on doing any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's gonna strip it down for parts.
Yeah. So at least we know what the intent was, about as far as Beta. And I think, like I mentioned in my video, I think that she's one of the more interesting characters they introduced. I think the actor is good. I think that she could hold our attention as a central character. There was a lot that was left out, but if they fill in those blanks and it all makes sense, then I think it's fine. I have a nostalgic desire for the original, but I'm not really sure if I look at it, if I step outside of what I know and what I experienced and just look at it for what it is, like, I'm not sure that that's all that great. That's a huge improvement compared to what we got. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying what it is necessarily, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. So, and again, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how they can get that essentially the same emotional beats out of that with with reshuffle, continuing to reshuffle the deck of characters. And I think there's a bunch of different ways you can get there.
Yeah, that was the bit, like, more than like the actual reveal of who the character was. The thing that I felt like I was losing a little bit was the motivations behind the regular, like the books version of Beta, and how they interacted with the mule and what that meant about the story. And
I thought they were laying,
and I think they can't.
I was like, oh man, they're really setting this up nicely for Beta to be shocked when da happens. And
yeah. And so that has to just move to a different character.
I think that the Gambit. I'll open with the Gambit. It's a non-spoiler Gambit. I think it's awful telling that Beta pointedly didn't convert Tauren.
Absolutely.
Tauren has
huge. That's a huge detail. That's
a huge part of the Central Mule's conundrum character. And I think that gives us some important clues. If you're a bookhound, you want to see how, they're going to continue to shuffle. At least how I think Goyer was going to continue to shuffle the deck. We'll be talking about that here in a bit.
Here's the thing. Here's a question I have for you, Aaron, fellow Foundation enthusiast. I know you asked David Goyer about the nanites, and he pretty much didn't answer. He gave you a non-answer for the most part.
He said it's
knowing the Beta's the mule, and that she's the one who hung out with Dawn in that little room that was set up, that you're led to believe was set up by the pirate for his two high priority prisoners. How much do you think that everything he believes about what happened to him is just BS that she implanted in his brain?
How much of Tauren?
No, Dawn.
Oh.
Like, he thinks he can't walk. Like, he tried and could not, but
Demerzel said that the nanites cut off 10 seconds after.
The nanites cut off. That's a thing that happened. But all
the leg stuff is just in her. That's something he's using to keep.
It could be like it could go even as far as like what he. I can't remember the ambassador's name from there. No, the other one, the one that opened the airlock for Dawn.
Oh yeah.
The one he did dirty with the enclosure. Yeah. So yeah, all of that, like the nanites might have went offline because the mule had something to do with deactivating them directly. And that whole memory of floating through space and having your legs metabolized might not be real.
But to what end? Where are we going with that?
I don't know. I mean, I just think the nanites thing is annoying because it doesn't make sense. And you asked him directly and he didn't give you an answer. So
I hope they're not going. The only thing that, because I was trying to figure out how a couple of these things how you could make some of these statements that Goyer made consistent with what we know. And I tell you, I was distressed to find out I couldn't figure out how, for example, the fact that the metal man, or I'm sorry, the metal non-humaniform robot that was standing next
Asterion.
to us. Yeah, his name's Asterion. Sorry, its name is Asterion.
Yeah.
And where was I go? Where's
you were trying.
Yeah. I was thinking that I was trying to figure out like how this is when we found out that was Lee Pace's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's no way that can't be related to it's not like if it's just coincidence that this robot has Lee Pace's voice and has nothing to do with the Cleonic line, I'm going to be so fucking pissed. I hope I can say that here. I'm sorry. I'll be so fracking pissed.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I think
that's really hard to figure out. Like I have not come up with a great idea.
The only thing I can think of is the time travel thing, like some kind of 6-dimensional. What's happened has always happened, and I'm like, that's you got
one thing that we know happened.
Yeah.
One thing that we know happened is that there was another group that was trying to take down Empire.
Right.
In season 1, somebody was behind the Gardener, the faction that she worked with, trying to get Dawn. When he ran away, they tried to replace the nanites. I mean, that could be related to why that he sounds like Empire. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he sounds like Empire. Like not just Lee Pace.
No, he sounds like Empire. That's what Jim said when I'm like, well, mate, is there because I'm like, or think about there's a couple of other Dawns that have met bad ends or have been lost or whatever. Like at some point pre the last 150 years, if that other robot faction. But the thing is, I don't like about that theory is because I'm taking the robots at their word that they have stayed out of this affair since at least the robot Civil War, or at least until
that's true.
The foundation of the Empire. So like. There's got to be some other force, but also I guess is Calla, is she that? Because it seems like she's been awful freaking involved in affairs for a robot faction that's tried to stay out of the affairs. You know what I mean? But also, is that because like they philosophically and intellectually do not want to get involved, but also they're still 3-law robots and they're specifically then Zeroth law robots. So how much can they ignore their programming to not help humanity, right?
Well, one of the things that he said that gives me a little bit of anxiety, not really like anxiety, but let me see. Let me pull up my notes on that. I don't want to misquote what he said, but he said that there's 2 factions of robots, right? And that one of them doesn't want to work with humanity, unwilling to work with humans, and the other is open to it. I don't know. Like, for one thing, this all sounds like the Second Foundation trilogy, which he said that he didn't read. It's not exactly, you know what I mean? But like in there are 2 major factions of robots. 3 laws robots versus Zeroth law robots. You know what I mean? Some that think they should stay servants and just do whatever humanity wants. And the other group that involves Daniil and Giscard, who think that they need to help humanity,
Well,
not self-destruct.
So my idea, I think Goyer is suggesting, because like a lot of times he takes the same themes and the same kind of labels and shapes that Asimov does, but he does them at different purposes. What if they're all Zeroth law robots? Because it seems like this is something in Asimov's robot series, is that when the Zeroth law is implemented, not all the robots can process it. In fact, our Danielle's best friend and kind of like the creator of the Zeroth law goes robot crazy and loses his brain the first time he tries to implement it, because it's such a tough shifting in sand kind of thing. So I think there is not any robot that is actively hostile to humanity. I interpreted this, and this is just, this isn't my book. So I think the two factions are the robots who think the best way to help humanity is to guide, shepherd, and nudge, and the robots that think the honest best way to help humanity is to prime directive them, get the hell out of their affairs. That if robots mess with it, then not only will, if humanity die, they'll die, but it'll be the robot's fault, arguably. Whereas, I think that's what he's going for. What do you think about? How's that strike you?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense, but then like, what the hell is Calla doing? Because she's obviously involved. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that's confusing.
That's why I feel like maybe Calla,
like she's like actively working with the Second Foundation Harry, and like takes him to the moon after when he's about to die.
Right? Yeah.
Like, how is that a hands-off approach? She gave him a body. So is she just not part of the other faction? But like, yeah, it doesn't add up yet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm missing pieces.
Yeah.
I'm missing pieces from what he said, like,
yeah.
I said, as I mentioned, it gets confusing because even though I never read the Second Foundation books, I did read a discussion, it was a university paper about a discussion the authors had when they were getting ready to write those books. And they identified problems with the series that they were trying to address, and it's pretty clear in there that they don't like the ending. You know what I mean? Like, they don't necessarily like Daniel's role, like in the way that he melded the two books together, or the two series together, Robots and Foundation. And they don't like the ending of like how the Foundation Earth ended. So, which is not that they're not unique in that. A lot of people don't. And there is a problem in that, like, Asimov couldn't write, and he never was able to figure out how to solve the story and write the next book. You know what I mean? He went back and did the prequels, and then passed away before he ever got back around to it. So yeah, so that's the one thing that when I think about those, I think about like they're kind of solving a problem that I don't necessarily have. And I wonder if they got those ideas from the Azimov estate, because obviously it was sanctioned by them, and Goyer has said that he's gotten information from the estate about perhaps what Azimov had planned to do after Foundation and Earth. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of questions and stuff there that really it's probably going over a lot of people's heads.
Asimov has his secret writings that only Goyer has seen, and now there's only the 2 fabled pages of bullet points that have the 8-season outline of Goyer, and you can only translate it if you look through a golden tablet at the particular time. Yeah, it's like, okay, all right, there's too much. There's too much information floating around here. Is this about the time? Should we maybe prompt the listeners the watchers for some more questions, non-spoiler questions, because I feel like I can feel the call. We both want to get in here and talk about the curveball, how they can knuckle the curveball.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have non-spoiler questions, obviously we'll try to address those.
We have any indication of the identity of the brazen skull?
I think the brazen skull I feel like that's a new character.
Really?
Well, I mean,
I was thinking
you've watched my Demerzel and Calla videos, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of know where I was at before. This is kind of throwing a lot of that stuff, because I figured it was all Daniil, you know. That's kind of what I thought.
Until I was going to put money on the barrel to bet on the metal person standing next to Kali being Giscard,
Yeah,
because that was like
because he's a metal
our
person that
Daniel,
looks exactly like the cover of Robots and Empire.
Goddamn right. And like that's like the different, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. They're gonna put that, but then when he hit me, like you might even hear in it when he's like, whose name is Asterion, I'm like, oh,
Which if you've never looked it up, Asterion is it's a king of Crete in Greek mythology, which is no one significant necessarily.
Mm-hmm. But that kind of kicked one of the legs from the theory that I was building.
Yeah, it was certainly this whole thing. Like the idea that it started in episode 9. The idea that they're not working together necessarily, Calla and Demerzel. That was a big. That confused me, because I hadn't really imagined it beforehand, that if there were robots remaining, that they wouldn't be working together. You know what I mean?
I wonder if that's the unanticipated development that Callie is really referring to. The fact that Harry gave her the Prime Radiant, which gave her access to Demerzel, for the first time, and allowed her to start doing her own nudging. Because it's my understanding that there are not two different Prime Radiants. They are literally the same thing, shifted in phase space or some kind of some kind of quantum mechanics baloney. Not the quantum mechanics baloney, the way it's employed by science fiction writers often is, but
yeah.
So like if Harry,
they're entangled is the way that
all of them. Yeah, quantumly.
It's quantum entanglement.
So like that, means if one turns one way, the other turns. So if any change is made, they'll both reflect each other. And that, to me, it's that was the first thing I thought of, is like, oh, he's giving it this because it's going to be a two-way listening device, essentially. But I didn't see the logic bomb coming. But now that I know that, it's also like this could have been the thing where it's like, the robots on the moon are doing their moon program, and I feel like that's when you made that point in your Callie Demerzel video, that it's like, I didn't realize this, that the reason the Callie set up shop at that one world is because all the hostile machines there were there to kill any humans, and it had been 3,000 years since it had been significant, and it was a depleted. It's a perfect place to hide out. Well, what's even better than that is the mythical home of humanity, where everyone has forgotten, or maybe I feel like in the books that I'm not as familiar of the later books as I am the first few, but I felt like there was always a hint that someone had removed the information of Earth. Like that when that guy went around trying to find it, he found a lot of dead ends where the record had deliberately been purged. And I feel like that puts the Earth and Moon system as the ideal place to hide. If it's man's mythical birthplace that we've all forgotten about, and the robots go around, when they were folded into the library. By the way, Jim pointed this out to me, or I think one of our listeners. Folded is referring to Callie's folding theory as much as it is physically folding to put on a shelf. So I think they're implying that the robots might have actually in a real way become the library, and that thus they would control history. And maybe that's why Harry had to go back to get the true truth from Demerzel, because she's the only one that remembered the unredacted, unvarnished history of the last 10,000 years.
Well, there's also that comment that she makes and repeats of larger robots hid in larger spaces, smaller robots hid in smaller spaces. Nanites are also robots when you think about it. The thing about the term more broadly.
Well, I guess it's like they're talking about autonomous, like thinking robots, like they can reason or self-aware.
Yeah, but I think there could be another layer there, like of what's going. Like the library is certainly important. That statement about hiding there is certainly important. It's just, is that important for the second foundation, or is that important for robots? And is that also a way to set up Demerzel hiding in the Prime Radiant? Because that leads her there, and we haven't really talked about her death yet. But can you imagine a Foundation season without Lee Pace? Lee Pace's voice is one thing, but without Lee Pace and Laura Byrne both just not showing up,
I think you could. Honestly, I think it could survive Lee leaving more than Laura. But like, I cannot imagine a Foundation season without Demerzel. That's insane. That's what I'm saying.
So that's
like an old series
that's base
without Spock. You can't do it, man.
Yeah, that's baseline, right? Like she has to come back. Like when she's dying, you're watching it happen. Hopefully you're
Go ahead.
Hopefully you're invested in the emotion of the scene, but like, she's coming back, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Because like I just think that Lee Pace is enormously entertaining, and the Empire has been one of the most riveting things about this show. But it's not. The show could survive the Empire being destroyed, and I still think they got ways to bring Lee Pace back in a reduced role. Maybe not as main cast, but clearly, just like Salvor Hardin's got that zygote, which I saw Mr. Goyer get a sparkle in his eye when I pointed out that seems to be a way to bring back,
that's another thing that's another thing that Beta being the mule calls into question, because one of the next storylines involved a child that comes from they're called the Durrells in the book, but from their line, right? So that's got to come from somewhere. If mules are sterile, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. It's like, Azimov retconned all that stuff with his whole Gaia idea.
Yeah.
The mule's backstory.
So back to Demerzel. Where do you think she is?
I think that as people pointed out in chat, that a lot of sleuths figured out that Demerzel flashed in Morse code transferred, right?
Yeah. Wait a sec. What do you think about that?
Her using Morse code?
About that detail. Yeah, just the
I think it's I don't know. I don't know why like it gives the fans something fun to speculate, because I knew that she's not dead. I figured her whole ass skull is laying there.
Yeah, I think it's unnecessary for sure.
That a skull of that intactness can clasp and communicate with another robot. So we're going to see her again, regardless of, in anything else. But like, to me, there's only two destinations she could have transferred to. One, the robot head, which I don't think works from a timing aspect. And the other is, I think you surmise too, is the prime radiant.
Yeah.
It's the only
I think she's in the Prime Radiant,
and the size of her, because we know that the mental engrams of a person get bigger and bigger. That's one thing they taught us with the Cleonic memory database, is that they were so much smaller than the original Cleon. But Demerzel, can you imagine the space that it would take to hold her entire experience? So I think she's the only thing that could hold her.
Like in the book, she has like an imprint of everything, all of humanity, like all of history. I mean, like, I don't know if the show has made that same thing, but yeah, she has perfect recall for.
But you didn't like you didn't like the Morse code part. You thought that was goofy.
I just thought it was like, who's that for? You know, like, I guess the VFX guy said that she thought he thought she was Morse coding to Brother Day. I mean, it just felt like, I don't know. Like, I agree with you that it was a cool detail that fans seized on. I don't know. Like, I don't need that kind of stuff. You know, like, I want like to like that. You don't need to like break the fourth wall there. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what they're doing, you know? But I didn't like, when I watched it, I didn't think about her connecting with the class part of the brazen head at all. Just because I thought she was in the prime radiant, but that part, I mean, that might make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really know what was happening there. I didn't know if it was because Brother Dude had sang the song and that got interrupted somehow. You know what I mean? And that like, when it came back on, it was.
I think that like Brother Dude had done enough of the computer repair that maybe the robot was able to get its self-repairing systems and it could get the other way, and then it carried out.
Like, that's sort of how I thought of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so too.
But people have said and have made a pretty good argument that she went into the Radiant and then she transferred over to the Brazen Skull. I don't really see the
problem with that is, like, I do not believe that Calla would recognize Demerzel. Like,
that's what I was saying. Like, she says it's not Demerzel, right, and I just kind of take her word for it because she's the biggest, baddest robot that we've ever met in the story. Right. You know, so
I would think she would even. It's like she would see through the difference of hardware and like recognize, holy crap, this is Demerzel. But that's the reason I don't think it's the Brazen Head. I think the Brazen Head's its own deal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because if there is a larger story, there needs to be other robots. So that's just another robot, right?
I guess, again, I don't, since if it's probably not Giscard, because it looks like another humaniform robot, then it's got to be a unique creation to this show, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's like really shuts off the avenue of speculation if you can't fit it in any other character.
Yeah, so you guys entertain the idea that Asterion might be Harry?
Yes, I think it was telling that Calla, when it's time for Harry to die, he did not die. He went into a portal to her moon base, and then she said, "I can't give you a new body. You already had skin in the game." If he literally is now a non-humaniform robot, that would be able to. He's still got a body, but he doesn't have skin in the. I feel like it's a way for them to reveal that in a future season that won't seem cheap and dumb and forced. But I gotta say,
why give him Lee Pace's voice?
That's another thing to blue, because I'm like, well, it's either got to be Giscard or it's got to be Harry, one of the two. And maybe because the Giscard's whole thing in the robot series was he was the first robot that had like psychic hardware, a flaw in his programming that allowed him to kind of have mentalic powers. And he was the kind of progenitor to all the other robots to teach him how to have that ability, right? I thought it'd be okay. Well, it's interesting of like this metal robot's Harry, and he spent 200 years training amongst Mentalics. Who would be better to equip robots with some kind of a way to clasp and commune with humanity than Harry? And this all led to my ultimate theory of this kind of like gayish thing where they're going for like all of humanity and robots being able to clasp and be, a collective. But because that's essentially what Azimov did. Like, he's like the future of humanity is a true collective, like beyond communism, beyond socialism, beyond private property. You don't have private thoughts. Like every human being is a cell of humanity, and we're all in together. But like that scares the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah, people don't enjoy that.
Yeah, people don't, because it's like it's very different from our perspective, you know. Like we can't.
People don't want to Deus Ex. They don't want something to come in and save humanity out of nowhere. Like, but then they also don't want to think about humanity changing from how they actually are, which is super destructive. So it's like, you know, it's like it's like the biggest problem with all epic tales. You know, it's really fun to look at the problems that we have as our flawed but lovable species, you know, embarks out into beyond just our planet or whatever. But the truth is that we kind of need something to get us in line, because history has showed us. I mean, Foundation, that's what Foundation is, right? It's a retelling of the fall of Rome, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the concept. It evolves into something else, but it was very specifically pitched and written as that in the beginning. You know what I mean? So, history, you know, for history not to repeat itself, humanity has to change. But as Asimov found out when he got to the end, people don't generally embrace that idea.
But it's like one of those things where it's like you just don't know, because, like, you know, it's like, oh, or you don't want to be the Borg. You want to be these robot zombies that are like pallid and they don't have sex anymore. They just reproduce by microwaves or whatever. And I'm like, but what if the Borg are really happy and content? Like if you connected to them, they're like, yeah, okay, we got all this flesh tube and stuff, and it's not great, but, like, you know, all of my basic needs are met, and I get to think about philosophy and science and literature 24/7, and I'm connected to billions of my neighbors, and then it's like, okay, well, then you look at a famous celebrity who has this fantastic, lavish lifestyle, and they're always happy, and everything's, but then you find out that they died in the gutter because they had a heroin overdose, because they're secretly miserable people.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather be I mean, I don't, but that's, to me, that's what I've always, since a little kid, like, I've always loved science fiction by challenging me to, you know, what would you make that deal, you know?
Yeah, it is a good question. Someone mentioned in the comments that the Expanse had an interesting take on that. I don't want to spoil the ending. That's something we talked about.
That too. That is another, like, humanity essentially saying fuck that to some sort of universal collective harmony.
Yeah, because, you know, obviously the people who have been assimilated into the hive mind are loving it. You know what I mean? They're saying, hey, come join us. And the Expanse says, should we do that or not? You know, and they have their own take on it. People were asking about, because we meant in the chat, they were asking about, since we mentioned Lee Pace, why couldn't he just be the grown-up version of Dawn next season? I feel like I don't feel like there's going to be a time jump, but I also think that they made that character Cassian Bilton. You know what I mean? Dawn, this version of Dawn, we tie everything that happened to him this season, which was pretty significant to that actor. So I feel like you lose something if you age him up a little bit and make that leap pace.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think David intended there to be a time jump. And I think he intended the dude bro Emperor to be dead. But I do think that there is.
He told you that some of those characters die, right?
Right.
And we don't think Demerzel died, so that only really leaves Lee Pace, right?
Right. And I think that potentially we'll see him again in, like, a season 5, because there's there's lots of different ways you could bring him back, through the remnants, the diaspora of the Cloud Dominion.
That's another thing that you asked him directly that
is still on the table, and no one's forgotten about it. So
his answer there, his not answer there, was way more telling. Like, that's definitely planned.
The real answer for why they wouldn't bring Lee Pace back is he's probably one of the bigger price tags on the cast. And if
but he is a producer.
Recurring from, like, series regular to recurring or guest star, that would save big bucks.
He got a producer credit in season 4, though.
Oh shit!
So he's definitely still involved.
Get paid, but do you pay him double? Do you get him? Does he make money coming and going, or do you like, okay, you got the producer?
Well, if he's a producer, then yes, that's what the whole thing. That's how it works.
No, but I mean, like, but they don't have to keep him on as an actor, so they could save that.
They
part
don't
of
have
it,
to.
right?
No, I mean, like Goyer still has a producer credit and he still
Yeah.
gets paid, but they said we don't want you to be involved with.
Right.
We don't like. We're going to pay you not to work, basically.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think they would do that with Lee Pace, but they could.
But that's one of the easiest ways to reduce cash is like cut locations, take remote locations, bring them someplace local cheaper, and get rid of the big ticket above the line folks.
They film it mostly in Czechoslovakia. Is that correct? Do you know?
Think so, although I think
Prague,
the Czechoslovakians would be very upset if you use that. It's the Czech Republic. Thank you very much. But
yeah, I'm sorry.
Or is it Prague? No, it's because he's always talking about being in Prague. So yeah.
That's just like the name I learned as a student in grade school.
Around to Iceland and to Spain and
yeah, there was a lot of remote locations for sure.
And I bet that shit gets cut right out. The stuff that like Goyer fought for that cave location for the mother's womb or whatever the hell it was in season 2. He fought for the space buffalo to fly from the moon to the planet. I think those are the real, the like visually jaw-dropping like location sets and scenery are the things that are going to get turned down to about from an 11 down to like a 7 or 8, for better or worse.
Yeah, I don't want to really speculate. I don't think that there's, if in reality, I don't think that there's a chance that it'll make the show better.
Yeah.
Just because not because the people that are going to replace him will be incompetent, but just because that's just a really difficult thing to do. Like there's so many moving pieces in a television series, and it takes time to get all that stuff firing on all cylinders. And they kind of got there, and now basically what we're hearing is that they're going to start from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real big. It's. I didn't even consider the fact that he's taking the writers, his working directors.
Yeah, one thing that I wondered, he didn't give you an indication if Jane Espenson was returning, did he?
No, that name wasn't mentioned.
I mean, that was his second. She came in towards the end of season 1, and I feel like if she was still there, that would seem like it would be a good chance at continuity, at least, you know what I mean? Because she certainly knew what he was doing, but like in the release for the season 4, the announcement that Apple TV put out, she's not mentioned in that. So I kind of think that,
and I think he would mention that would something he would definitely mention about his friend and colleague, that if like, hey,
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah. That's why I was checking with you if what you thought, because I don't
even know it was a total sweep. I thought like Roxanna Dawson might be able, but it does sound like, and who knows? Like I don't think obviously Goyer doesn't own those people, but it does seem like he's taking them to other projects, and yeah, they're gonna have to rebuild a lot of stuff from whole cloth. But I guess my fondest hope is it's not a disaster, that they're able to take the track that Goyer has led and bring it to a smooth conclusion. Maybe not as flashy, but it'll have the and then stop at season 4. Unless
I kind of
crazy good, it's awesome, and then I'm like, okay, let's see if these guys can rip. But
yeah, I kind of think that you're right, that is the safest route to take. Like the only having one more season and using the off ramp that was built in, the fourth season off ramp that he envisioned, is probably the safest bet. Just say, you know what, we kind of know what he was going to do here. We kind of know what the plan was. We can wrap up the mule. We can plant the seeds for what comes next, and then just, let the fans imagine what it'll be like rather than actually showing them what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a bummer, but like, I don't know. What are you going to do? Like I said, I think it's really difficult to just one television show, it's one of the things, like I just saw Pluribus go by in the comments, and it's one of the things about, when you think about Breaking Bad, like how many things had to go right for that to end up being remembered as well as it is. And having a second show, there's no guarantee that if you make one good TV show that you can just knock them out. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of examples of just only coming together creatively for one particular series. And, whenever you got something that you're just changing the staff in the middle, it's just not, it's an added thing. I mean, I'm rooting for them. I hope that they'll be able to.
And the other thing they got going for them is a lot of people are like, oh my God, season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead. But the thing about Fear the Walking Dead is it had no direction to go. It was not set any source material. They were just the reason for that show was to extend the buck that they were making. So every year they came in and like, fuck, what do we do? These guys threw us a hot potato. What do we do? And the guy fell on his face. But hell, the Game of Thrones people fell on their face with 80% of the story told and a good foundation, all that kind of stuff. So, I just we'll just have to see. I hope it goes well too, and I think it will. I think if they get to a 4th season, that this guy, now that he has, because it's not just a Goyer, and it's also that he kind of like Goyer has very pointed ways that this thing is going, but if the guy cares to, he can read the source material and see, oh, okay. So like it's not like this is just something like, oh my God, we have to make Foundation season 4. They got a lot of things to work with, and that's a huge advantage if you're just adapting versus making stuff out of a whole cloth. So I've got cautious optimism that if they just go with 4 seasons and get out, and honestly, if they keep going 5 and 6 and it sucks, I think they get to a satisfying place with the mule, and maybe because the other thing they have to do is take care of the second Foundation, because them being out and about is the opposite of what they're supposed to do. So I guess I got from Goyer's conversation he intended to resolve the mule and the second Foundation revealing itself all next season.
And then, like I said, you would have to. He says an off ramp, but I mean, it's a stop. It's not a conclusion. Yeah. It's a stop point to where you can just sort of imagine what. I
think it's a very analogous to season 6 of The Expanse. There are 3 more books, but if you didn't know that and you just watched The Expanse, you would not feel like, oh, wow, there's this. Where the hell's this story going?
Talk about budget cuts and kind of making things a bummer. That was a short season that I think had a lot to do with the fact that they only would give them so much money to finish that one off too.
Well, shall we talk about spoilers? Should we let the non-spoiler folks go and go behind our cloak of podcast?
Yeah, we could do it this way. We sort of put a limit on the non-spoiler thing because we have to do both in the same day to an hour and a half when we reach that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything from the interview that you did with David that we didn't touch on. I think as far as the actual season 3 of Foundation, we hit all the major points. Maybe not so much about Gaal, but I don't know what else there is to say about Gaal.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the thing. It's like one of the things I try to do as showrunners is I try to skip the questions I know they're not going to answer. I hate that part in the interview where like Jimmy Fallon's all like, I know you won't say anything, but I just got to ask. Is Jon Snow really dead? Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you right here. I don't like to do that. It's just stupid. And
as the interviewer, which we should put a link into the thing for your in the description for your full conversation, and people, I would tell everyone to go and listen to that if they haven't already. It's an hour long, I think, maybe a little bit longer than 60 minutes. And
broke out 26 different bullet points of unique unrevealed information that came out of that conversation, and I was impressed. It did that seemed good even by my memories of the conversation. So yeah, it's pretty entertaining if you're a Foundation fan.
Yeah, I'm just looking now at my notes, and there's at least 20. I don't know if I got 26 of them there, but there was several points of interest for me, and I think for most Foundation fans for sure. The money stuff is interesting, like if you never, if you weren't really sure how some of that stuff works, he's pretty open about that in a way that people usually aren't. Some of the challenges they face because of that. He did talk about, like I said, the nanites was the question that you asked him that he declined to answer, but he said that was an important point going forward. He said that this idea of being inconsequential was a part of what was going on with Vault Harry. What was the biggest thing that surprised? What was your biggest surprise as the interviewer?
He said he just unprompted named a robot. Like that blew my freaking mind. I guess that's the thing that jumps out at me. The other, I guess, is like from Goyer's standpoint, and it's like only half the story. It really feels like this tragic thing where Apple just wanted money back because they lost money. And he was a very good faith partner in trying to like, okay, I'm going to try to get as much as, I'm not trying to showboat here or, big time you. And because he wasn't willing to cut even more, they weren't able to come to terms. And then they end up not being able to cut any more anyway. And that just sucks. That's just the stuff about Hollywood that sucks. It's the same thing that sucks about sports, man. You get all involved and you cheer for this laundry, and then they trade your star quarterback away, or they fucking take your team away from your city. And then what do? It's like, it sucks. It sucks to care so much about something that ultimately at the end of the day is a nickel and dime abacus calculator type thing. That's not about the emotions and the heart at all.
Yeah, that's the problem that's built in with TV. It's part of the reason why I like it. But it also is the reason that it's a love-hate relationship, is that it's a commercial enterprise. You know what I mean? They're not there was like a time in TV, not in the not so distant future, where there was like a real, let's make this an art form. Let's make it art for art's sake, that and never really existed in TV before. And it doesn't persist. Like, it's not you make TV to I guess sell streaming subscriptions now. It used to be to make people watch advertisements on their television because they were captive.
A crank to print money, like at the
end but that's
I
mean, if you look at the history of it, I mean, that's what it was. They were serialized radio shows at first that were, sponsored by companies, and you would talk about their products for breaks in between, in exchange for them, putting on the production or whatever. And that's what developed into TV, right? Okay. So if we go into full book spoilers here, how do we warn potential people who are going to come in to the...
Can you change the stream title? Because that's
what I'm looking at. I'm trying to look into that right now.
You're 5%. Or I could do something. I could help you out here. I could do a little bit of.
I can change it. I can change the title. I didn't because I knew I had to talk to you about specific things related to your interview and everything else. I focused on the notes rather than making things with
Does this help? Is this helps? Is this if I just put this over my face? Is this what we need? I can make it blink. I can turn it red.
I'm going to change the title to book spoilers discussion.
I'll take the GTFO. That's a little aggressive.
Yeah, I can just give me 1 minute. If you want to try to keep the dead air,
I mean, there's nothing more fascinating than watch a guy jockey OBS. Oh man. I can do all kinds of things. If I really wanted to leave Pete out to dry, I'd pull something like this.
Hold on a second. This may be causing a problem.
Oh no, not a problem.
Well, it's asking me when I'm changing the title, and it's asking me when I want to. It has saying that the time has to be in the future, so it may be actually altering.
Possible.
Yeah, so let's stop this. Let's stop this game.
And just start a new one that's called Spoiler Talk Only, and everybody just rejoins that wants to.
I think that that's the only way to do it properly. Okay. So let's do it like this. Thanks for coming in, enjoying our conversation on the season 3 wrap up. If you want to, we're going to start another stream in a minute that's going to involve book spoilers. So please join us for that.
This is like a Gen Con Q&A, you know? It's like everyone's got to get out of the room. You can come right back in, but we got to clear the room. We got to clear the room for the next panel.
Yeah.
On what is it? Comic-Con.
Comic-Con, yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. It's always a pain in the ass for me because I know that there's a certain part of people who just don't care if they're being spoiled, but there are people who don't. So I feel like we have to.
And then there's a special breed of I thought I could handle the spoilers, but now you told me, and I'm sad. It's like, well,
it will often spoil. Like, spoilers are called spoilers for a reason. They often do ruin the story if you find out something first.
Yeah,
it takes away from it. Like, some people don't care, and I understand that, but other people, it does ruin it, and then they can never get that back. So you have to give them a choice, right? We don't want to take everyone's agency. So
right.
We'll be back.
The one thing, and that one thing should be spoilers.
Yeah. So we'll be back in a minute. Thanks for tuning in. Can't wait for season 4 of Foundation.
See you guys.